Welcome everybody to today's Parenting Academy Live Q&A. Today we're going to talk about a super important topic, which is why creating a strong connection with your child is one of the most powerful ways to reduce challenging behaviors and how to do it in real life. Many parents, when they encounter behavior challenges, they try to stop the behaviors by using logic, consequences, or rewards. And those tools can be very useful. How connection is the foundation for cooperation and less behaviors, and it will give you simple, doable ways to build that connection with your child at home. One of the things that parents often say to me when dealing with behavior challenges is this: well, they should just listen. They know better. Or they shouldn't do that because they know better. It's important to know that behavior is not just about knowing what to do. It's about feeling safe, understood, and connected enough to do it. It's so important to understand that behavior is complex. What makes a child feel motivated and act the way they do is way more complicated than it actually seems. What is underneath the tip of the iceberg is often referred to explain how the tip of the iceberg is the behavior that we see, and what's underneath it are all the reasons driving it, which is often multiple things and multiple layers deep. I did a little visual of this prior to getting on the call, but this is basically like what the iceberg visual looks like. Here is the tip of the iceberg, what we can see, the behaviors that are visible, and there underneath it are all of these things that are not visible to us, and these X's mark potential reasons basically driving that behavior that we can see. So this visual actually explains how much more complex behavior is than just, they should be able to do it because they know better. So again, very important to know that behavior is very multifaceted and driven by multiple forces, not just one. So let's talk about why connection works as a strategy to decrease challenging behavior. Connection is it's not just like a nice idea of, let me hang out with my child for a little bit. It's actually a core human need. It feels the need for safety, for belonging, and for significance. So when your child feels seen, safe, and important in your relationship, then they don't have to act out to be seen. It's innately inherent in every human. We have a need to feel safe, a need to belong, and a need to be significant in whatever environment that we are in. When kids feel disconnected, they fight, they flee, or they freeze, fight, flight, freeze. Or when kids feel connected, then they listen, they cooperate, their emotions calm down, they trust you more, and their brain becomes more available for learning. It's important to remember that you don't have to be perfect, and I'm going to walk you through what you can do. It's just important that you're present, that you are warm, and you're consistent in order to build that connection with your child. So let's go a little deeper into the 5 reasons why connection works to decrease those challenging behaviors and the strategies that you can use to start building it at home. Number 1 is that connection calms the brain. When your child feels disconnected, their brain is in survival mode. This means that the areas in the brain that are primal and reflexive in nature are activated. Think about encountering a tiger in the jungle. Like, that is the part of the brain that is activated. There is basically no reasoning, no logic, no thinking, none of that going on. It's just acting, just behavior. Tiger encountering in the jungle, I'm gonna run and feel scared and run away. That is what gets activated when your child feels disconnected. But then when connection does is that it soothes the brain, so your child can actually access those areas of the brain that allow them to self-control, those areas of the brain that involve thinking, reasoning and actually controlling their actions. So, a strategy that you can do for this is do 10 minutes of one on one special time daily. No siblings, no phones, no chores, no agenda, not you wanting to play whatever you want to play. Actually, let them pick the activity and don't teach them, just stay with them, engage, and join their world. The benefit of this is that it helps your child feel seen and valued. And when they feel seen and valued, this leads to fewer meltdowns and more emotional balance for your child. Reason number two is that connection builds trust. Rules only work if the relationship does. This means that setting rules for your child only works if you also have a strong, trusting relationship with them. If the connection between you and your child is weak, rules and discipline won't be very effective. If your child doesn't trust you, they won't follow your lead. And I just want to clarify in this context what trust means is basically to what degree does your child believe that you care about them, that you understand them, and that you are on their side. If they don't trust that you are on their side, they're going to be less likely to listen to you or do what you ask. So, a strategy for this is to connect before you correct. Before you give a limit, an instruction, or you establish a rule, try connecting first. For example, you can say something like, I know it's hard to stop playing when you're having fun. I hear you, but it's time to clean up. So you're acknowledging their feelings and you are connecting about their reality before you actually establish your boundary. Connecting before correcting lowers their defensiveness because they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel valued. And this improves cooperation in the long term. Reason number three is that connection fulfills the need behind the behavior. Sometimes behavior is a cry for attention, a cry for significance, or a cry for reassurance. When those needs aren't filled ahead of time, then the behavior does happen. The opposite is also true. When those needs are filled ahead of time, the behavior often does not happen. Basically, when your child doesn't feel like they're missing attention and they feel significant, they don't have a need to seek it out with behavior. So they just don't do it. A strategy for this is to give little connection doses throughout the day, little moments of potential eye contact, high fives, light, loving touches, a quick hug, positive statements like, I really like how you're doing that. I love being your parent, things like that. They are simple, but they're very powerful tools to connect with your child throughout your day. This quickly, daily connection doses or cues make your child feel secure and they feel important, they feel valued and important. So when they feel like that, that leads to less attention seeking behavior and more emotional regulation because again, they don't feel the need to seek out those attentions or loving statements in a negative way. Reason number four is that connection builds resilience. Believe it or not, kids deal with stress too. They just don't have the skills yet to say, I'm overwhelmed or I feel blank. Instead, what they do is that they just act it out. So, connection helps them bounce back faster from those emotions. Connection teaches them that it is okay to feel those negative emotions and it helps them move through them faster, which builds resilience in the long term. A strategy for this is to name what you notice. For example, a kiddo who seems quiet after school, you can say something like, you seem kind of quiet. Do you want to talk about it or do you want to just hang out? No pressure, no need to make them tell you anything. Just be emotionally available for them. Or another example that has been super prevalent lately with the temperature warming up here in Southern California is kiddos who feel irritable because they're hot. You can say something like, "You have super pink cheeks. You must feel hot. Would you like some water to cool off?" You're acknowledging that they're feeling some type of way that they cannot yet tell you or express, and you're giving them a solution prior to anything happening. Noticing and naming those feelings shows them that you are emotionally available, which leads to more emotional openness from your child, fewer shutdowns or explosions, because again, you are putting it in the front floor of their head that, they're feeling a certain way and that there is a solution for it before anything even happens. And reason number five is actually that connection gives you, as the parent, influence. Your ability to discipline effectively depends on your relationship with your child. We can just expect children to listen to us because we are the adults. It just doesn't work that way. So, if you want your child to follow your guidance and accept your discipline, they have to feel safe, loved, and respected by you first. A strategy for this is to repair. When things go wrong, if there is an argument, maybe you said something or did something you didn't mean to, what you can do is go back and connect with them. It's okay for you as a parent to make a mistake. What's important is what you do afterwards. You can say something like, "Hey, I'm sorry for yelling earlier. I was feeling very overwhelmed. Let's talk about what happened." Or something similar. This repairing or repair actually models accountability to your child, which is something we want them to know, that we are each accountable for our actions. And that includes you as a parent as well. This makes your relationship with your child stronger after the conflict, and then your child becomes more open to learning and feedback. Okay, so some top mistakes to avoid are: number one, only connecting when things go wrong. Make deposits before withdrawal so that the relationship doesn't go negative, right? Fill the connection tank before correction is needed. Super important. It will be much better in the long term when you have more positive in there than you are withdrawing from the negative. Number two, thinking that special time has to be big or fancy. It happens so often. It does not. You don't have to take them to SeaWorld or to get ice cream to connect with them. Your child just wants your undivided attention. It can be literally 5 to 10 minutes. What matters is that you're actually giving them your full attention with no agenda of your own. And mistake number three is letting behavior block the connection. Your child needs connection the most when they are struggling. So remember that you don't have to fix or stop the behavior first. Oftentimes, connecting first and then correcting is actually what helps the most in the long term. So, just a quick recap, just knowing that connection is absolutely essential to decreasing challenging behaviors. You don't need to fix every behavior, you just need to meet the need that is underneath those behaviors that are visible to us. Connection helps your child feel safe. They help, it helps them feel seen and open to your guidance. And then just a simple few actions like special time, empathy, and repairing with them can reduce a lot of the challenging behaviors that you're experiencing at home. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Yeah. So we got some spicy ones in there today, so I'm really excited about today's topic. I think that whenever we talk about connection, there is uh, a segment of parents that are very skeptical towards that. So we definitely got some of those today, and I'd love for us to dive into it. So
Mhm.
one of the questions that came up is I've tried connecting with my child, but they still misbehave. And I'm curious, because I hear this often, isn't this just giving them more attention for acting out?
Um, Short answer, no. Because when we connect with them, hopefully we are following all of the strategies that we just talked about, where we are connecting with them before. We are doing everything in advance to be able to build that relationship with them before any conflict occurs. Connection is a proactive strategy to those behaviors. Now, it's important to note, I'm not saying that connecting with your child is going to end all behaviors. It will just make it easier for your child to follow your lead. If you're constantly in conflict with your child and they are not following your directions and they're not following your guidance, you are not a trusted leader for your child. And so this connection will help repair that, so that in the time in which conflict occurs, you are more likely to be able to manage that challenge.
Gotcha. Another one came up. I don't know if this is really a question. It says, I didn't grow up with a lot of connection from my family, and I feel like it turned out fine. Why should I treat my child differently?
That's a fair statement. If you think that um, whatever you're doing is working for you, what I recommend that you ask yourself as a parent in that situation where you feel like you didn't receive a lot of connection from your parents and you feel like you're fine, I would ask myself this question: is this strategy of lack of connection, like my parents did with me, working for my child? Because just because it worked for you doesn't mean that it works for your child. Like, your child has different variables, right? Even though you're the mom or the dad, they also have a 50% counterpart, which is mom or dad. So their circumstances and their variables are going to be very different than yours. So really ask yourself the question: is this working for you? And it might be worth questioning if this approach actually works for your child.
Yeah. Um, Another question that came up is that this sounds nice in theory, but what if my child doesn't care about connecting with me? What do you suggest a parent does then?
Yeah, I would again, connection is a human need. There is no such thing as a child not caring to connect. It's either we they don't know how to display those like wants for connection. We are not really finding the interest of the child, which is why they kind of like disconnect. There are multiple things why you might think that your child doesn't care about connection. That would be first step, identifying why could that be. Is it that every time I try to play with them, I try to play something that I want? Or I would be curious to know, like, what makes you say that your child doesn't care about their behavior. But I would question that, because children always care about being connected. And step number two that I would recommend on that would be just keep trying different things, and then you will know over time that what things work and that your child actually cares for connection once you really identify what they care about in terms of connection. Like, you will see by the behavior of your child that they do care.
Does this still apply to children that maybe have like developmental disabilities that they're not able to, you know, they're not able to express those things like autism or things like that, or is this just for neurotypical children?
Absolutely, all children. Neurodivergent children, even more so, don't have the communication skills sometimes, the emotional regulation skills to tell us that they want to feel connected. And oftentimes they seem like maybe they don't care, but this can't be farther from the truth. What we need to do as adults is really find how to connect with them, really um, leverage their interests and their own unique strengths to actually connect with them. They long for connection just as much as anybody else.
And what would be signs of connection for maybe parents that have a child with a developmental disability who often appears to be disinterested in anything that they do together?
Yeah, some little signs. Definitely observing your child and knowing them well, what their mannerisms are, what their likes, what their dislikes, their facial expressions. Knowing your child well is going to really help you identify those signs of connection. But some common ones could be eye contact when there wasn't any before, touching, leading, wanting to face you, to turn their attention to you, to lead you places, to want to play with you, to bring you things that they like. um, Maybe signs or gestures that they typically wouldn't do. I'll give you an example. I saw a video the other day of a kid with diagnosed with autism who couldn't speak, and he was in a little like pool like super tiny place, and his grandpa actually poured warm water into the pool, and this kid who has no gestures, no nothing, like he wouldn't do eye contact, looks at his grandpa and actually pulls in for a kiss. The family would have never expected anything like that, but that was his form of saying like, hey, I love this so much, thank you. And it was such a sweet moment. They caught it on camera. Those things are indicators that you're actually connecting with your child. It's just really hard to know what they want and their interests because they can tell you. But if we seek and we try, you will find those moments of connection from your child back.
Yeah. I know earlier you mentioned of how 10 minutes of one-on-one time is going to, help with building a connection. A parent asked, how does this time help with issues that like hitting, screaming, or refusing to go to school?
To go to school specifically?
Yeah, like how does the 10 minutes of one-on-one time going to help with real issues that they face, such as hitting, screaming, or, not going to school? Just
Yeah.
examples.
Yeah. Um, it will help because, again, children are inclined to trust you as a guide or as a lead or to support them when they feel connected with you. Connection is a prerequisite to you be able to discipline them. So if they don't feel connected to you, in those times in which screaming, going to school, all of that happens, they are less likely to want to follow your lead. However, if they are connected to you, if they feel safe, if they feel supported, in those challenging moments, they will be a lot more likely to follow your lead. And that's how that will help.
Gotcha. Can we dive into that a little bit about the connection being required for discipline and how that works out? I'm sure there's tons of parents that are out there right now that are like, well, that was not their circumstance growing up. Kind of going back to the parent that I was asking about, saying they turned out fine. What does it look like when they don't have that connection beforehand?
When they don't have that connection beforehand, what it looks like is those behaviors when they occur, a lot of the typical strategies. If you're a parent who says like, well, I've tried sticker charts, I've tried motivation, I've tried to giving them everything and nothing works, and those typical strategies to motivate behavior are not actually working for you and you've tried it all, it is likely that that connection is not there. That is what that looks like. A lot of behavior, a lot of power struggles, a lot of negotiations back and forth, like lack of listening, almost what it will look like for a parent, like disrespect. Um, that's what that looks like.
Gotcha. Um, Sorry, I'm going through. Some of them are pretty similar regarding um, why connections required to be a trusted authority. Um, is there anything you have thoughts on that? Because I see that as a recurring theme. Is that like parents, from the comments that we're seeing, is just like, well, I'm the adult. They need to listen to me because
Mm-hmm.
I'm the parent and the authority. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
My first thought, again, if it works for you, fantastic. I would like to ask all of those parents to ask themselves this question. is this working for me? Because your past doesn't need to define your future. So, and it actually doesn't. Like, your past doesn't define the future. So, if all up until this point, this discipline like behavior from you has not worked, then I would invite you to ask yourself this question: why? And then see if, from there, what you get, like, is it working or not? And then, in terms of why connection is required to be a trusted authority, um again, it is really just a fundamental of being a human need. We all need to feel safe. We need to feel like we belong and connected. And maybe making an example that is more, I don't know, on our day to day as adults, maybe a boss, right? A boss who we cannot trust, we don't really feel connected to because they are unpredictable. Their mood depends on whatever the weather that happens that day, or they don't seem to care about us. If you've ever been in a workplace when it doesn't seem like you're cared for, you are less likely to trust that boss. Now, if you have a boss who is a good leader, who clearly cares about you, who clearly supports you, you are more likely to follow their lead. It's the same thing for children. They don't know the difference that you're the parent or not. They don't know who you are in terms of, like, um, what that means for the relationship. They're just going by what they get on their day to day. So if you are an adult that um, shows them that you care, that you support them, that you're on their side, they are just more likely to follow your lead. The opposite is true. If they don't feel that way, if we don't show them that we are on their side, they are less likely to follow or lead when we need them to. So that is why connection is required to be a trusted authority and someone who they will follow. And maybe if there continue to be questions on this, I can do a follow up next week on this particular, like, dive deeper on why connection is really required um, to be a trusted authority.
Yeah, and briefly, would you be open to diving into what worked means? Because I'm sure there are a lot of parents out there that are saying, like, well, my discipline strategy works. My child does what I want them to do. But when you're talking
Mhm.
about work, I have a sense that you mean something different other than just compliance. Is that right?
For sure. What I say when I say when something works is, are you actually seeing less behaviors from your child in the long term, or are you continuing to find the same situations that really annoy you, that really stress you on your day to day? If your child complies in the moment and the behavior ends, it works in the moment, but it doesn't work in the long term because you continue to have that problem. So when I say it works, does it actually stop the behavior from happening in the future? Or are you still here trying to figure out why your child doesn't listen to you?
Gotcha. Um, we have another question that came up. How long does it typically take for this approach to for parents to start seeing benefits? Um, this mom, it seems like it's a mom. I've been trying to do this with my daughter over the last couple weeks. Um, just unsure if we're making progress in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great question. As long as you're being consistent, I can probably predict that you are making progress in the right direction. It's really hard. Parents always want to know, what's the timeline? When is this going to work, right? Behavior doesn't work necessarily that way. And there's no, like, timeline on, like, when this is exactly going to start working. It's more about consistency. It's like progress over an outcome. You want to continue to build this habit of building connection, and then you will start seeing that your child is more likely to follow your lead in those moments of stress or challenging times. I would encourage you to continue to be consistent, and with enough time, you will see the difference. Something that may help to understand is that the amount of time that it takes us to change behavior is partially dependent on how long that behavior has been happening. For example, somebody who is trying to diet and really overeats, if they have been overeating for 20 years, it's going to take longer for this person of 20 years to diet than a person who has been overeating for 5 and then they're trying to diet. So, however long the behavior is happening that we're trying to change prior to will partially determine how long it will take for a particular strategy to work.
Yeah, and then I guess final question, just to kind of wrap things up. When you talk about these strategies of building connection, what is the outcome that you would like parents to focus on? Because I imagine a lot of parents come to these calls and they're like, okay, connect with my child, and I'm going to see less behaviors. But my guess is that they're looking at the wrong outcome for a strategy like this, because you mentioned it's a proactive strategy, right? So what is it that they should be searching for and doing these strategies that you talked about today?
Yeah. What they should be searching for is actually positive interactions with the child in a way that they feel that they are seen, important, and valued. That is really the outcome. When you engage in those connection moments with the child, you want to see them excited. You want them to talk to you. You want them to show you things and play with you and tell you all about their like crazy stories and magic and all that stuff. Like, you want to build those moments. That's the outcome. Because when that happens, is when the children feel safe, connected, that they can trust you. And then that leads to the less behaviors, the less everything. So, really, in terms of an outcome, you're just looking for positive interactions with your child. And it's super important that they are undivided attention. It does not count if you're on your phone. It does not count if you're like talking to your spouse and then you tell them, like, yes, honey, tell me about it. Okay, let's talk about it later. Like, none of that counts. It's really about undivided, no agenda attention where you can actually have positive interactions with your child.
That's great. And by building those positive interactions with your child in those moments, you're likely in the future to have a child that's more cooperative and also one that's more respectful in that sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's all we got today, and it was great talking.
Thank you. See you guys.